Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom. I'm Moreh Rapha'Yah. We are going to go ahead and start this amazing Parashat or Torah portion. Parashat Tazria. Tazria means she conceived. In this Parashat, it deals a lot with women and their menstrual period, or also what is called in Hebrew Nida and Tahoha, which means the purification. This has a lot to do also with the coming of Mashiach and a lot of things related to us as well. So buckle up, because we're going to go ahead and study this Torah portion, because I'm so sure that we're going to get something out of it. Parashat Tazria starts off with Leviticus or Vayikra 12 verse 1 all the way to 13:59. The first Oleh says, Yahweh spoke to Moshe saying, "Speak thus to the sons of Israel, when a woman conceives," Hebrew Tazria, "and bears a male child, she shall be clean for 7 days. The time of her menstrual indisposition will remain impure as in Nida," which means separated or impure. This Torah portion starts with something that we need to deeper into what this Torah portion is. It plainly says very clear about conceiving a baby male. But not only that, it tells you pretty much the two sexes, which is male and female. It's very clear when it comes to the reproductive system about a male and also a female. See, the way the Creator sets everything is so perfect. The reason why He created men and women is for them, or for us as humans, to follow the next generation. You can pretty much see it with the animal kingdom. Very clear, if you guys remember how Noah, when he got out of the ark, Yahweh says very clear, "Go and multiply." How can a human multiply into the following generation unless it has to be a male and a female? Do you see how it makes sense? See how everything makes sense when it comes to the Creator? Nowadays, with this woke, with this mentality of men, how they want to change things around the way it was supposed to, which is the perfect combination of female and male. Now, everything is being trying to change these things, but in reality, Yahweh has made these things perfect, male and female. There is no way that a male can reproduce a baby. Why? Because it doesn't literally have the reproductive system. It's just as simple as that, brothers and sisters. How can we want to change things the way the Creator intended to, unless you want to tell the Creator, "We don't need you anymore"? And that's a problem right there. Creator, from the very beginning, He made things in a very way for us to understand. Even a kid, 7 years old, can understand that. Yet, the mentality nowadays is they want to destroy everything that the Creator made from the very beginning. And in other words, men in general, those who are opposed to what Yahweh has made from the very beginning, wants to tell the Creator that we know better than you. How can a clay, how can a mud, a dust, tell the Creator of the heavens and earth, we know better than you? We don't know anything, brothers and sisters. And the little that we know is very, very minimum to how immense our Creator knows everything. Why? Because He's our Creator. That's why we are the creation and He is the Creator. Period. Let's continue. The word nida means separation, uncleanness, impurity. something that it has a lot to do with blood, of course. And the reason why, let me stop here for a second. The reason why the Creator has made this through the woman is because if you guys remember how the woman sinned, and because of that, Yahweh had to make the payment through blood. And not only that, as far as the impurity and also the pregnancy duration, and also the pain that the woman has to go through, it will be multiplied, and it was multiplied, and it is multiplied to begin with. But in the very beginning, if our forefathers would not sin, things will be completely different. Pain will be probably very less or maybe nothing at all. The duration of pregnancy will be probably even faster. So things got even worse. Let me show you what I'm talking about. Isaiah 66 verse 7, before she was in labor, she gave birth. Before their pains came, she gave birth to a son. Now, before I show you what I'm going to show you, let me give you a verse that has a lot to do with our Mashiach as a son. This has a lot to do with the very beginning, okay? And look at what it says here, 3:16. To the woman he said, I will make your labors as many as your pregnancy. Do you see this? In pain will give birth to children. So it goes to show you, brothers and sisters, that the Creator, in the very beginning, things like that in that nature were going to be very minimized. See, if you really think about it, out the animal kingdom, most of the mammals, do you see how they give birth? They simply give birth and that's it. They just walk out like nothing. But when it comes to humans, it's very painful. I'm talking about women. Why? Because this one is a clear indication from the very beginning. It's a clear indication how Yahweh had made this happen, and it has to go through generation to generation until everything is completely reversed. Meaning that Yahweh will make things even better when we are transformed. I'm not saying that we'll multiply in the very future. No, I'm not saying that, because our Mashiach, he said that. He said, in the kingdom of Yahweh, nor will you give him to marriage, or you bear children. He said it very well. So let's continue. Look at what it says here, Psalms or Tehillim 2 verse 7. I am to proclaim this decree of Yahweh. He said to me, you are my B'nai, my son. I have fathered you today. Who is it talking to, or who's talking to about? The Mashiach is talking about Yahweh, that he is making him a son, and he's the one who's begotten him. How does it work? It's because our Mashiach was created. That's why one is called father and the other one is called son. See, a lot of people miss these little details about our Mashiach. Our Mashiach had a beginning. If you go back to Genesis, Bereshit, chapter 1, verse 1, it says very, very clear in the Hebrew, in Bereshit barach Yahweh Aleph Tau, which means in the very beginning, Yahweh created, before the heavens and earth, he created Aleph Tau. Who's Aleph Tau, brothers and sisters? It is the Mashiach. Even our Jewish brothers says very clear that before anything else, I'm talking about creation, Yahweh created the Aleph Tau, the Torah. You see that? Which means that there is more weight for in that. Even the Berit Chadashat, in the letters of Shaul or Paul, says very clear that our Mashiach has a beginning. He is the firstborn of all creation. Revelation chapter 1 says very clear that he is the firstborn of all creation too. So once again, he is the firstborn. He is the first creation of Yahweh. even before angels, even before anything else that you can think of, Mashiach is the first creation of Yahweh Sebaot. So let's continue. Verse 12, honor the bod, lest he get angry and perish along with the way. By cleansing his wrath in a moment, blessed are those who take refuge in it. So the reason why I bring verse 12, and let's go back to verse 2, you see how it says Benay, and verse 12 says Bar. The Benay, let me pause here for a second. Benay it's Hebrew for son, and Bar is Aramaic for son. But the difference is one is called son, okay, and Bar means the son that inherits something, inherits anything. In this case, he inherits the whole creation. That's why in verse 8, 1:8 says very clear that, or 2:8, I'm sorry, says very clear that our Mashiach is being given the authority and kingdoms and everything, including ourselves as humans. So that goes to show you that our Mashiach is the son that inherits everything. Leviticus or Vaikra 12 verse 3, the Sheminith, the 8th day, will have the skin of her for his skin cut off, which is the Brit Milah. She will remain in a Tahoah, which is the state of purification of blood for 33 days. She shall touch nothing set apart or Kodesh. Now she shall stand before the Mikdash or temple until her period of purification is completed, which means that she should be set aside, isolated, certain way until this period has passed away. All this has an origin. We always wonder why 33 or 40 days it needed to be separated. Why the double of that, if it's a female, 80 days had to be separated. There's a reason for it. There's always a reason for it that we need to look for. If you see here, men, the state of cleanliness had to be 7 days apart, plus on that 33 days is included the 8th day of Brit Milah, which is the circumcision. The total of 40 days that the woman had to be apart in that cleanliness. Now, if they bear a baby female, then it was called Nidah, which is the blood purification. It was double of 7, which is 14 days. And after that will be 60 days, the total of 80 days, which is the total of everything. Now, it's very interesting to see this, that if we go back to in the book of Jubilee, chapter 3, verse 8, in the first week, Adam was created, and the rib of his wife, in the second week, he showed it to him. And for this reason, he was given the command to guard in his defilement how many days? For a man, 7 days. And for a woman, 7 days twice, which is 14 days. You see, there is an origin of everything. There's always a string. Where is it coming from? And we coming from all the way from the very beginning. That is the reason of double. Now let's go back to 3 verse 9 of the book of Jubilee. And after Adam had completed 40 days in the land where he has been created, which is, he brought it where? In Gam, which is the Garden of Eden, to cultivate and keep. But his wife brought her on the 80th day. After this, she entered in the Garden of Eden. Why? Because If you really think about it, who was created first? Obviously, it was Adam. After that 40 days, Yahweh created who? Eve. And then that's the reason why the 40 days and the 80 days. You see that? So that is the reason why there is always something that codify in the scriptures in the Torah that we need to look for. And there's always something that we can relate to as well, because once again, this is the Torah, brothers and sisters. Book of Jubilee 3 verse 10. Look at what it says here. And for this reason, the command is written in the heavenly tablets concerning her, the woman who gives birth. If she gives birth to a son, she will remain in her impurity 7 days, according to the first week of days, 33 days. See that? But in the case of a female, she will remain in her uncleanness 2 weeks of days, right? Which is the double of that, 14 days, according to the first 2 weeks, and 66 days in the blood of her purification, and it will be in the 80th days. You see that? So once again, this is just a recap, and just to what we read earlier in verse 10 and 11 says the whole thing. All this, when we see it in the Torah, we can now put things together, connecting dots, in other words. We can actually see why the Creator gave these instructions to Moshe, giving the Torah, giving these instructions to our forefathers, and now it's codified, written down. Now, let's put it together in both man and woman. For men, we know it's 40 days. For a woman, it's double of that, which is 80 days. You notice that 40 plus 80, it gives you 120 days. All this is related to all mankind. Remember what the Torah speaks about 120 days. Genesis, or Bereshit, chapter 6, verse 3, Yahweh said, My Ruach, my spirit, will not remain among these men forever, for they are flesh. Therefore, his days will be 120 years. This 120 years has a lot to do with the whole 6,000 year millennium of mankind. It hasn't ended yet. We're still at the end of the 6,000 year. Now let's put it together. 120 jubilees or jubels times 50. 50, remember that one jubel is 50 years. If you multiply 120, which is the whole total of numbers of jubel or jubilees for the entire 6,000 years, it gives you exactly what I just said, 6,000 years. We are basically and amazingly living in the 6,000, in the end of the 6,000, and also we are living in the last jubilee. We are living in the last era. We are living in the last generation. Just so you know, you might want to write it down. We are living in the last generation, which is 100 years, starting in 1948, when the land of Israel became as a nation. Okay, if you count 50 years, it gives you a 1998, which is another fulfillment of a prophecy, beginning of fulfillment of a prophecy of Ephraim, the house of Israel, the northern kingdom. That's why you see all this explosion of Hebrew roots, and even more so now. And we know that right now we are living in the last Jubilee, which is yielding to 2048. But I'm not setting dates. I'm just saying what is pointing at. Remember what Mashiach said in Matthew 24, where he said these words, quote unquote, 24 Matthew says, I'll tell you this, that this generation shall not pass until these things are fulfilled. We are living in the last generation. Now, 2048, Mashiach said if it wasn't because of the just or righteous, time would not be shortened, which means that we have the ability to bring the Mashiach early. But it's all up to us to do so. Let's continue. So we can see that in chapter 1 of Genesis is 6 days of creation equals to 6,000 years. I spoke about this in Parashat Bereshit if you guys want to check it out. 1 day of Shabbat is 1,000 years. So the total of 7,000 years, that's what there is a remaining of the millennium. When Mashiach returns, that will be a Shabbat that we will be with Mashiach. After that will be the 8th day, which is called the Olam Haba, which is the everlasting life. We'll talk about that a little later on the festivals of Sukkot and Shebeni Atzeret. 2 Peter 3:8, also my brethren, do not forget that to Yahweh 1 day is like 1,000 years, and 1,000 years is like a day. And it's so true, because our Creator, you have to understand this, that our Creator is outside time and space. He utilizes all this to make things happen. He knows the end. He knows your end. He knows my end. Either it's good or bad, but it's your choice at the end. He's giving you the ability to choose good and to reject bad, death, evil. Chapter 30 of Devarim or Deuteronomy says very clear the curses and blessings. But he's given us an advice to choose life, to choose blessings. Now, Mashiach in chapter in Parashat Tazria and the next Parashat, which is Metzorah, we'll see 3 things that are unfolding through our Mashiach. The first one is Tazria, which means she conceived. It's talking about Mashiach as being born as a baby, right? And the purification and everything. Sa'arat, which means death. We're talking about the leprosy, right? What they call it today, but which is basically the skin disease. Mashiach died. But we see in the Parashat Metzorah, which is to be alive, resurrection. All this as a lot is yielding to our Mashiach, is pointing to our Mashiach. No wonder even our Jewish brothers speak about this, that all the prophets and all the Torah speaks about the era of our Mashiach. Even our Mashiach himself said, search the scriptures because you will find the everlasting life, and it speaks about me. Bear witness about me. And that's what we always encourage, to follow Torah all the way through. Now, I want to show you something, changing gear. 35 of Genesis 16 to 18, Yaakov and his party left Bethel. Before they arrived in Ephathra, Rachel began to give birth to her baby. She was having a lot of trouble with this delivery. It was in great pain. When her nurse saw this, she said, "Don't be afraid, Rachel. You are going to give birth to another child." Rachel died in childbirth to the son. Now we know the story. We know that to begin with, they were going to call him Benoni, which is the son of my pain. But Yaakov changed the name to Benjamin, which is the son of my right hand. Remember that he's always pointed to our Mashiach. No wonder why there's a lot of things related here, pointing to our Mashiach. Let me show you something. Matthew 2, verse 18, a cry was heard in Ramah, a lamentation, a great groaning. It was Rachel who wept for her children, would not be comforted because they perish. If you guys read the whole chapter, you will see how Herod made enacted a law to kill all the kids from 2 years and under, trying to catch our Mashiach, but he fled to Egypt. This was a fulfillment to the prophecy. Read it for yourselves. But what is intriguing so much is that it mentions Rachel weeping for her children. Do you know that where she was buried in Ramah, in that path, it was in the same path where the northern tribes, the 10 tribes, were going to exile to outside Israel. So it is important that this exile going to the nations, it was very intriguing that it was in the same path where Rachel died. Now, let me show you something. Jeremiah 31 verse 15. Thus says Yahweh, a voice is heard in Ramah, mourning and bitter weeping, Rachel weeping for her children. She doesn't want to be comforted for her children because they are gone. You see, I'm just giving you verses so you can, do your own research and you'll find out that all was related, all was fulfilled to the letter. Not only as Ecclesiastes 1:9 says very clear that what it was, it will be again. The history repeats itself over and over again. It's a pattern. It's a principle that you will see over and over again. In the case of our forefathers, when they exile to outside Israel, to exile to the pagan nations, same here in Jerusalem when our Mashiach is being exiled to Egypt, and at the same time, kids are being slaughtered. Now, let me move on a little bit. Relating to Rachel, look at what it says here, Revelation 12, verse 1. A great sign appeared in the Shemayim, or heavens, a woman clothed with the sun and with the moon under her feet, and her head a crown of 12 stars. And she was with child. She cried out of pain, labor pains, and suffered anguish to give birth. We know this story. We see the next verse is very clear of our Mashiach, but I do want to show you something. It will mention something that, if you guys remember the so-called the Guadalupana, which is the Virgin Mary of Mexico, if you guys see it, or I'm sure you see it or seen this, that there is a woman that has a crown, 12 stars, and under her feet there is a moon, right? All this is just pagan propaganda, because in the Torah does not exist. Let me show you why. Okay? But let me just show you real quick. Verse 5, she gave birth to a male child who is the lead of all glory in the nations, with the iron scepter or authority, and his son was cut up before Ayil Almighty and his throne. We know that is our Mashiach. But who is this woman? This woman is none other than Rachel herself. Let me show you why. Look at what Genesis Bereshit 37 verse 9 and 10 says. He had another dream, talking about Joseph, which he told his father, his brothers. Here it is. I had another dream, and there was a Shemesh, a sun, and a Lila, moon, and 11 stars bowing down to me before me. But his father rebuked him, because he understood, of course, what is this dream that you had? Do you really expect me, your mother, and your brothers, you see, to come and bow down on earth before you? They all knew the meaning of this dream. But do you notice what it says? The moon, the stars, the sun. Exactly what we just read on Revelation chapter 12. That woman is basically Rachel. That man is basically Yaakov, 12 sons. You see that? The 12 tribes of Israel. From that 12 tribes, the Mashiach comes. All this is related to the Torah. It has nothing to do with pagan, Vatican, Roman propaganda. And it never was. Because that's idolatry. Look what it says here. 35 verse 9. So Rachel died and was buried in the road of Ephrat, which is Bethlehem. Yaakov erected a pillar of a stone at his grave, and it is a stone, the pillar of Rachel burial to this day. Israel continued his travels and pitched his tent in the other side of, you see this, of Migdal Eder. Now, the reason why it shows Migdal Eder is because it was very close to where Rachel was buried. And if you guys know a little bit of Migdal Eder, which means in English is the tower of the sheep. Why? Because Bethlehem, the house of bread, was the main headquarters of the high priest or the priest to raise sheep to be slaughtered in the temple. And all this is not a coincidence. All this is related to our Mashiach. If you guys remember that our Mashiach, when he was born in the time of spring. You can actually see the video here in this channel, in my channel, and you can check it out for yourself. The birth of Mashiach on Abib 1:1. It's very clear. Explains very, very clear there. But the point is that Migdal Eder, that's where our Mashiach was placed. It was the same place nearby where Rachel was buried. You see how everything's connected? Now let me show you real quick. Yaakov is the Shemesh, the sun. Rachel is Yererecha, the moon. And the 12 stars are the tribes. It's all related to exactly what Yohanan in the book of Revelation speaks of. Matthew 9 verse 20. Suddenly, behold, a woman with an issue of blood for 12 years came up behind him and touched the tzitzits of his clothes. What were the tzitzits? How did she knew about all this? You have to understand something. Let me pause here for a second. Everybody knew one of the signs of Mashiach is to bring healing on his wings. His wings is basically where the tzitzit of the fringes are tied. It's not in these slides, but you can go there. It will be Malachi chapter 4, verse 2. It says very clear that he will bring healing of his corners, which is basically where the tzitzits are tied. All these prophecies were fulfilled, not all of them, but most of them, because some other are going to be fulfilled when the Mashiach returns. But they were fulfilled with Mashiach to the letter. But you have to understand something. This woman knew about this prophecy, so there were many. There is also an account of not only her, but a multitudes wanted to touch, as the Mashiach, they wanted to touch the tzitzit, the fringes of his clothes, so they can be healed. And they did. So all this, once again, is related to Mashiach as a savior, as a healer. Not only for them, but for us as well. Now let me just show you real quick. Verse 21, she said in her heart, if I only touch his dress, he will immediately be healed. So here we can see pretty much how she was healed by touching the tzitzits of his garments. All this has to do with all of us. Kraspedom in Greek is the borders, the fringes, the tassels, and is translated, is equal to the word tzitzit in Hebrew. Now, not having here, but you can look it up in the book of Malachi. Also speaks about, or Zephaniah, I'm sorry. Zephaniah speaks about the 10 men or 10 tribes will touch the corners of a Jew. Who are these 10 men of 10 tribes or 10 nations? Is none other than the 10 lost tribes of Israel. All of us have the capability to come back to the Hebrew roots, the real Mashiach. That's what we are touching the corners of our Mashiach. And that's what we're doing this. Doesn't matter where you're from. As long as you accept the Mashiach, becoming part of the nation of Israel and follow the Torah, His commandments. Now, real quick, chapter 13, verse 45. As for the person with the condition of Sa'arat, of what is called today the skin illness, will tear his clothes and shave his head and will cover his upper lip, and he will cry out, Dame, Dame, which means unclean, unclean. All this, which is this illness that each one of us had, which is the sin illness. Remember, the Mashiach said, I did not come for the healed. I did not come for the well. I came for the sick, the ill. And it's so true. All of us have the need of our Mashiach. When we tear their clothes, it's a sign of mourning. For example, right now we're nearby the feast of Yom HaKippurim. We will humble ourselves. The Yahweh says, you need to humble yourselves. And that's what we're going to do. Shave his head. Shaving his head is another way of telling the Creator, I want to get this authority that I had before. Remember that Paul talks about that if you shave, okay, you're taking that authority out. But shaving the head here is a sign of taking the authority, previous authority, and you letting it grow again, okay, to have a new authority, which is Yahweh's authority. And will cover his upper lip. Why? Because our lips are being unclean for so long. We need to clean our lips, our mouth to Torah. Before we used to talk about so many unclean things. Now we clean our tongue. And this is very important. Let me show you this verse, Zephaniah 3 verse 9. By then in Hebrew say, I will convert, the word is chapach, the safach beruach, which means the pure lips of the people. And they might all call upon the name of Yahweh and serve him with one accord. All of us, brothers and sisters, have impure lips. Now, through the Torah, now with the Ruach Kodesh of Yahweh, now we become clean. Now we become purified. But it's only up to us to ask the Creator to make this happen. Just so you know, in this very verse is the only verse in the entire scriptures where it shows the whole entire Aleph-Bet, the alphabet. The whole alphabet is in that verse. And it's amazing because it speaks about pure lips, the Torah knowledge, and also purifying our souls. Isaiah 6 verse 5, I say, woe is me. I am lost, for I am a man of Tame Safach, which is unclean lips, living in the village of the same thing, unclean lips. And my eyes have seen the King, Yahweh Sebaot. We can relate to those verses. We can relate to saying this, that we have unclean lips. We live in this society that have the same, are carrying the same condition of these unclean lips, because that's the way the world revolves into what is unclean and what is evil. What is this world offers is nothing what Yahweh offers. And that's why we have the capability, the ability, and also the privilege to get to know our Creator in a way that no one has shown us. We need to take advantage of it. Malachi chapter 4 verse 2, what I was saying earlier, but you who fear my name, the servant, the Shemesh, or of Tzedakah, the righteousness, with healing on his kanap, his wings. You see that? This is what I'm talking about. That our Mashiach has the capability to give us the healing through the wings. These tzitzits signify the commandments of Yahweh. If you want to write it down, Numbers chapter 15, verse 34, 38, speaks about the tzitzits. It speaks about that these tzitzits are pointing to the commandments of Yahweh, are pointing to, basically, to the Torah, to the instructions of Yahweh. Now, let me finish up, closing, just like 2-3 minutes. Numbers 20 verse 11, then Moshe raised his hand and struck the rock with the matet or rod twice, water flood abundance, and the congregation of bleeding animals drunk. See that? Here we see that the word flood in abundance, the water came out bursting. But what happens with Moshe? He struck the rock twice. He don't supposed to, but he did. Something that he don't supposed to, yet he paid for it. Now let's look into Targum Yonatan on this same verse. Moshe lift up his hand and he's with the rod struck the rock twice. But look what it says here. The first time he shed blood, the rock. But in the second half, multitude of waters gushed out, and the congregation, the cattle drunk. You see how the first one, when he killed it, he shed blood. In the second, he gushed or flood water. There's something always encoded in the scriptures in the Torah that has to do, there's always pointed to something. In this very case, it's pointed to our Mashiach. Look what it says here. I want you to see the pattern here. Look, or Hillel 22 verse 44, in the great distress he made prayer, a tefillah, in more intensity, and his sweat became like drops of blood falling to the ground. You see that sweat is supposed to be water, right? You see that it became like blood. Let's look at another pattern. John 19 verse 33. Look at when our Mashiach was already dead. But when they came to see to Yahushua and saw that he was already dead, they did not break his legs. But one of the soldiers thrust a spear in his side, and look at what happened. Immediately blood and water flowed from him. Do you see that? You see the pattern? What the Torah speaks over there to the rock, the flood, in the very beginning flood, blood came out from the rock, but the second time blood flowed water. The same thing with Mashiach. It's amazing how we can see all this codified on the Torah, and it's showing us how amazing Yahweh is to all of us. Now look at what Yohanan speaks about this. 1 of John 5:6. He is the one who came by water and blood, Yahushua HaMashiach, not by water only, but by water and blood. And the Ruach Kodesh is bearer of this testimony, because the Ruach is the emet, is the truth. And what is the Ruach Kodesh, brothers and sisters? It's basically the Torah. It's the inspiration of our Creator to those who wants to do His will. You see how amazing all this is, always pointing at something. We are amazed how the Creator is always saving something for us to be, wow, how amazing the Creator is in these latter days. Let's continue to search for the Torah. Let's continue to study. I'm Moreh Rapha'Yah, And I'm going to be giving another shiur in the day of Yom HaKippurim. Be prepared. And we'll start Yom HaKippurim this Monday, the night, which is already Tuesday. Okay, so Monday night we start Yom HaKippurim to all the way to Tuesday, all the way through sunset, all day. It will be Yom HaKippurim. I will be giving a shiur, a conference. So be prepared for all this. We'll see you next time. Shabbat Shalom.
Please subscribe to our channel and give us a like. Thank you. We'll begin.